Hello, everybody. On today's show, the Maple Road Broadcasting System presents an American director navigating his meteoric rise.
It's as if from now on in his life, he hit a vein of good luck.
Hi, I'm Chuck Braverman. This is another episode of Westdoc Online. We're brought to you by Real Screen Summit's coming up in January. And go to our website, click on it, and it'll take you right there to information and registration. And we're also a Riverside affiliate. And if you click on the link, you can get a 15% discount on the Riverside FM platform. One of the great joys of being a member of the Motion Picture Academy now is, it used to be, they would send you DVDs, but now they have a website that Academy members can go to, and it's a pleasure for the documentary branch to be able to see all the docs, but it's also very overwhelming and intimidating because this year, as other years, we have a large number of docs. I think there's actually close to 150 feature docs, and that's not counting the regular feature films, the doc shorts, the live action shorts, and the foreign films. So I feel guilty if I don't watch one or two docs, a day, and I'm required as a voting member to watch 10%, which they assign to me. So I try and watch others, in addition to those. And to be honest, I stumbled across this film that's on the Academy list and watched it and really enjoyed it, and then was kind of stunned to find out that I'd never heard of the filmmaker, and it's because, he's a young upcoming name, which I'm sure you're all going to be hearing about. So let's introduce the filmmaker, Danny Wu. Danny, hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Mr. Braverman, for the incredible introduction. I'm just stunned to have this opportunity and this privilege to be on your show. So thank you for inviting me to be here.
Well, thank you. Please call me Chuck. And where do we start with you? I mean, first of all, let me ask you, where are you? I think I know the answer. What city are you in?
I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada.
Beautiful, beautiful place. I've been there. I've worked there, did a show there. And therefore, you're really interested in American history from the 30s and 40s, right?
Yeah, naturally, right? It's kind of...
And the funny thing is, I don't even think you mention Canada in this film anywhere, right?
Right. I think, we kind of joke around because we've been overlooked by a lot of, Canadian festivals because they flat out tell us that our story is not Canadian enough, coming from a Canadian filmmaker. So it's pretty funny how that goes.
It's funny. I started to watch the film again today because I watched it not that long ago and immediately got in touch with you, and I watched the first half of it again this morning, and I'm sort of again stunned at how interestingly you present this history that I thought I knew pretty well, and I think I do know that era fairly well. But you present things in a different way and a different point of view, and maybe a younger point of view, discovering a lot of this stuff that some of us already know, and some new facts that we didn't know about Orson Welles and about John Houseman and FDR. And I first of all just want to say congratulations on making a wonderful and enjoyable film. It's quite entertaining and quite terrific.
Thank you so much.
How did this come about? And how did this happen that you made this film?
So during the pandemic, as we were all home, I actually took upon myself to watch some of the greatest films because if I wanted to really get into filmmaking at that point, I never made a film properly, and I was kind of playing catch up, right? I didn't go to film school. So I looked up all these cinephile lists, and on these lists, what's the number one film that's always at the top? Citizen Kane, right? So upon watching all of these great films throughout history, the movie that I kept coming back to was Citizen Kane. And then to find out the director was only 25 years old, and that he directed, starred in it, and co-wrote it. It was just so fascinating to me. And to learn that he had been kind of railroaded from the United States, and it's all because of this film. I wanted to present that story to people my age, people in my generation, and I was kind of a lot of it was relating to stories in 2020, and so I've originally just wanted to make a little YouTube video, like 15-minute YouTube video about Orson Welles and William Randolph Hearst. And as the research upon it grew bigger and bigger, I knew that I had an actual film here. And at that time, the idea was to just shoot all of our interviews through Zoom and make a little YouTube video that way. But as I learned more about Orson Welles, the real reasons that he actually had to flee the United States at the time, it became evident to me that I wanted to make a film. And it went from there to the relationship between Orson Welles and Franklin Roosevelt. And it was always kind of my dream to make a film where there are parallel stories, but people never really meet. We never force connection. The connection might be more subtle or through subtext or implicit relations. So when I found out the story of Howard Kakita and how he actually came back to the United States in 1947 and Orson left the United States in 1947, that's when I genuinely got the structure of the film. And from there, I wrote the script and did a road trip around the United States to get all the interviews done, and that's kind of how we got here.
So did you say in the very beginning you did not go to film school?
No.
Or you did go?
I didn't go to film school.
You didn't?
No.
How can I ask how old you are?
I turned 27 this year, but when I was making this, I was 24 when I started, I think.
How did you afford to be able to make this film? I mean, just on the surface, looking at the archival footage that you have in there, you needed, an archival producer, and then you need to. I mean, I know it's expensive. Getting footage is expensive. You have a terrific animation that I want to talk about. By a gentleman named
Ifu King.
Ifu King.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was...
and you have this great orchestra music, original music, and how did that happen?
Well, I actually, before this, I had a YouTube channel that did quite well. I just made investigative documentaries and YouTube vlogs, nothing like this. So I already had a lot of friends in this industry who were very talented at what they did. And through that, I was able to, when I pitched this idea to everyone, a lot of people were willing to, believe in this project. They really believed in the vision to actually create to something of the artistic merit. And, I was able to get a lot of people to chime into this project that they wouldn't, many of the people who worked on our film has never worked in film before, right? And so this is their first time as well. And that's how we were able to get this project started.
So do you mean a lot of your viewers from YouTube?
No, not from YouTube, but my childhood friends. I'm just in debt to being able to make a lot of friends in high school. I went to a great school in Victoria, British Columbia, where I met a lot of talented friends that way. I have Ifu Kang, my art director. He's from China, and we were childhood best friends. And when I immigrated to Canada, I actually never were able to communicate with him much except in the summer. But he was always a genius. And he used to draw comics for me and stuff like that as a kid. And so I he had the opportunity to come to the United States to go to grad school in Cornell for landscape designing. Right. So I was able to pitch in this idea where we take a lot of the technology that he has in landscape designing, 3D modeling, and to put that into a documentary film and see how that would go. Right. So a lot of it isn't actual animation. A lot of it is him out here 3D modeling entire city at a time. But most impressively is what he did with Mr. Kakita's Japanese courtyard. I think that was just unbelievable what he had been able to accomplish, making a courtyard that was destroyed by the atomic bomb, basically 1-to-1.
Let's take a look at the trailer.
Hello, everybody. On today's show, the Maple Road Broadcasting System presents an American director navigating his meteoric rise.
It's as if from now on in his life, he hit a vein of good luck.
A 25-year-old comes to Hollywood, and under incredible pressure, he produces for his first film the best motion picture ever made. That's a story that no one in Hollywood would buy, but it happened.
An American boy travels abroad.
It was a wonderful reunion. They had a lot of picnics and parties and so forth. But around June, it was time for us to come back to the United States.
An American soldier returns home from the war.
And he earned 4 medals. One was a battle star for unloading battleships under enemy fire. My family issued a missing persons report. He was missing for 3 weeks. Isaac didn't even know where he was.
And the only thing that was different than other citizens of similar situation, was the color of our skin.
Officer X, we know your name now. Now that we've found you out, we'll never lose you.
His films were banned in the Deep South.
They poured whiskey over him, saying he was drunken and disorderly.
Then my older brother and myself, we said, where's grandmother?
The people who were incarcerated were Americans.
His story is not in any of the history books.
To be born free is to be born in debt. To live in freedom without fighting slavery is to profiteer. Friends of the democratic persuasion, I remain as always, obediently yours.
What are you doing about distribution for this film?
We have a distributor with Gravitas Ventures, but we're still seeking opportunities overseas and stuff like that for other distribution opportunities.
So what is Gravitas Ventures doing for you? They're here, and I think they're based in the LA area, as I recall. At least they were, right?
Yeah, LA and in Cleveland. And, their job is to put the film, pitch the film to different distributors, to streaming sites. I don't think we've had much success in getting like an SVOD deal, but I think getting on an AVOD streaming platform is the next step.
Have you? And what are you doing about foreign?
I want to diversify the ways that we can diversify the distributors in as many ways as possible. Our film has had such great foreign success. I feel some of our best reactions are in European countries, when we were at the Thessaloniki Documentary Festival or when we were in Brazil. So I'm constantly seeking out distributors. But at the end of the day, I can always just self-distribute as well with, Prime Video and stuff of that nature. So it's going to be seen regardless of if distributors take it on or not.
Would you be impressed if I told you I had lunch one day with Orson Welles?
What? You saved that until how long? Into 15 minutes in?
Too much history. But when you talked about John Houseman and how close they were together, I thought that was pretty amazing. And Mercury Theater and the whole backstory was just great. And I love the way you integrated in the other characters that I really didn't know about Isaac Woodard. And I didn't know, of course, about Howard Kakita, which was an amazing story. I still don't quite understand how he could have been so close to ground zero in Hiroshima.
Yes.
And have survived at all, let alone, we see him in your film and he looks
healthy,
perfectly fine.
yeah,
Right?
and he's still
Right.
traveling and goes fishing every month to
Does he
Alaska.
does he have an explanation for that?
I think his explanation to me was that because he got down from the roof and went into the bathhouse, I think because he was inside the bathhouse, that kind of protected him from the explosion. So that's why all his siblings were kind of his grandmother and his siblings were all indoors at that time. That's kind of how they all survived. But it gives me chills to just think about that.
Yes, that was a frightening story, almost as frightening as the Isaac Woodward story was terrible. And I loved Simon Callow, who kind of half narrated the film through your interviews with him. That was wonderful. What was your biggest problem or your issue trying to put this together? Was it juggling, the order, or how did you put it all together? What was the editing process like?
Do you mean logistically or actually in the filmmaking of the film?
Well, both. I'm interested in both.
I think logistically, it was just trying to make a film in 2020, 2021. Simon's interview, I obviously couldn't fly to the UK because we weren't allowed to go, and I think the UK was under lockdown at that time. But Mr. Callow had just emailed me back saying that he would love to do the interview. So it was kind of just so frustrating wanting to go there to interview him and not being able to. But ultimately, I hired a crew, and so I was doing it through Zoom, and the camera crew set up the cameras, and I was able to direct them that way. And fortunately, it worked out. And Mr. Callow actually didn't see the film until just 2 months ago. In London, we had a theatrical run in London. It was just so nerve-wracking sitting next to him, gauging his. I'm sure as a filmmaker, you'd know this better than anyone, but just to gauge his reaction, see if he liked it or not, see if he has that stamp of approval. And obviously, by the end, he gave me a huge hug, and I loved the film. But from the editing process, it was just. I think a lot of it was that because what I had done was I read every author's book, so I pretty much know what each one of them knows about Orson Welles. I wrote a general script of how I like the documentary to come out, and I think the editing process was that the difficult part was after my first cut, the movie was around like 2 hours, and some of my producer friends were just telling me that you're not going to get into a film festival for your first film doing a film for 2 hours. That's just not viable. And so to be having to pick and choose, and take out some parts that I genuinely loved. I think that was probably the part that, I wouldn't call it regrets, but that I had a tough time with just getting it down to a suitable time for a festival.
Well, as our expression, filmmakers, it's in the editing room killing our babies,
Yeah,
right?
and
Every scene is one of our babies.
exactly. And to add on to that, we had a sales agent who pretty much told us that, if you cut out Howard and Isaac's story, we'll take your film.
Really?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah, this is a pretty big sales agent too. But the argument was that Orsen's story is profitable or monetizable. That was the word used. Howard and Isaac just not monetizable, and it's a tough climate out here. That was verbatim, and so at least they were being honest with us, right? So that was kind of tough to swallow, just having that pressure to just, especially Howard. I got a lot of people wanted his story cut, and for that one, I just had to stick to my guns, and that was such a personal story to me as well. For example, like if there was no Howard story, I don't think I would enjoy making this film nearly as much.
Well, it's a fascinating story, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say, it's about a child being in Hiroshima when the bomb went off, and eventually immigrating to the United States and coming. His parents were born here. I think he was born in the States, and he ended up in Japan during the war. and I'm sure he has some other great stories. There's probably a whole other film that you could make with him.
He could definitely carry his own film. But to me, it was just so interesting. You know, he was born in 1938, same year as War of the Worlds. He left Japan in 1940 during the production of Citizen Kane. His parents came back in 41, which was the same year that Citizen Kane came out. His parents got sent to the internment camps the same year that It's All True was being produced. And ultimately, he comes back to the United States, and Orson leaves the United States in the same year. And to me, that was just like, I needed to, I needed the story in there. And to show some,
it's kind of an unfair question to ask about what is your opinion about Welles. But I mean, what you did bring out, which was quite interesting, was he seemed to, have a great bit of fantastic luck, and then he would hit a roadblock. And then he would have some more fantastic luck and hit another roadblock. And then he would have more luck and hit a giant roadblock. And his story is actually pretty sad, considering where he was at when he was your age, right?
Yeah. I think it's so fascinating with Welles. I think it's what attracted me to his story is that if you ask 10 Orson Welles scholars about their opinions on Welles, you'll get 10 different answers, right? For example, people really can't even decide on a consensus on why he left the United States. And that's why in the film we kind of show the different perspectives of the scholars at the end, and how it's kind of a multiplicity of factors. But to me, it hurts not to feel for him, right? Because you hear stories about him. We go on a Hollywood tour, and all they talk about is how Orson Welles was able to eat 11 hot dogs, right? And that's kind of what he's known as, like this joke to this new generation. And I don't like that. And I think that there's much more to his filmography than Citizen Kane. It was disheartening for me to find out that after Citizen Kane, he was pretty much never given the same opportunity again in Hollywood. And you can argue, of course, that it's his own doing, but no one can argue that it's not a sad situation. So to me, I tend to sympathize with Welles a bit more than the general Welles scholar, probably.
I'm having a senior moment, but I'm blanking. What was the name of the film that he made later with Charlton Heston that opens in Venice? Touch of Evil.
What a picture!
What a picture! And if you want to see a great opening before the days of Steadicam, and how the heck he ever pulled off that opening shot, which goes on for, I don't know, you probably know exactly how long it goes on for.
Is it 15 minutes? No, it's not 15, right? It can't be that long, but it's a long time. And I think the movie The Player actually did a tribute to that in the beginning as well.
Well, if you knew, I don't know if you know L.A. well, but if you spent any time down here, Venice, that was shot right off the Venice boardwalk area.
Oh,
and that whole area it's very, very well known. It's iconic down here. So, although it's funny, when he made the film, which was probably, I'm guessing, in the 50s, the mid 50s sometime, Venice wasn't thought of as the Venice today. I mean, you could buy a house for nothing in Venice, and now Venice is, beyond gentrified. Mm-hmm. What are you working on next, or do you have a next yet?
I don't have a next yet. It's because it's kind of hard not having a team. I'm just trying to balance everything out. I still am trying really hard to get as much people to see as American as possible. But I would love to work on a sports documentary. Something basketball related. That would be my dream. Whether that happens in my next documentary or down the line, I'm not sure, but that's definitely something that I would love to work on.
I just thought the whole film was fascinating for me.
When I was making it was also just interesting to see the symmetry of the United States and kind of the hypocrisies of the promises. The Orson Welles kind of this not rags to riches, but the American dream story. But during the blacklist, what happened to all those people. To me, that was very similar to what was happening to Japanese Americans, right? There needed to be a scapegoat. And on top of that, to see what was going on with African Americans in this country, and also to see that what's still going on in 2020 during the George Floyd era. I think that's really kind of what inspired me to make this film.
And being Canadian sitting in Vancouver, I think it's even more interesting, that you were able to make this film. So thank you so much for being a guest. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see what your next adventure and film is going to be, because I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. And I wish you the best.
Thank you so much. It's truly, truly my honor to be on your show.